Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game you guys requested as soon as it finished. It's from the Tata Steel India Rapid tournament that is currently taking place in Kolkata, India. Teimour Radjabov versus Praggnanandhaa, who is currently basically the star of the chess world as he faced Magnus Carlsen in the finals of the FIDE World Cup. For those a lot of you have been asking in the comments throughout the years, why is the tournament called Tata or Tata Steel? It's because the steel manufacturing company Tata Steel from India sponsors the event. If you guys remember, it wasn't called. You have two Tata Steels. You have the big classical tournament that takes place in Vaikanza every year, and you have the Rapid and Blitz that take place in India. And until 2007, it was called the Chorus tournament. Also, Chorus is a group that also was into steel, and Tata Steel acquired them. And from 2007 onwards, it wasn't the Chorus tournament anymore. It became the Tata Steel tournament. So just to clear that up a little bit. Okay, getting back to this game, it's a game from round one. Teimour Radjabov has the white pieces and he opens with pawn to d4. Let's see what happened in this one. It's quite a wonderful game and also features a great opening. Knight to f6, we have pawn to c4 by Teimour, e6, knight to f3, and now bishop to b4 check. Now when I play, and so most of the time your opponents will go for the Nimzo-Indian, or rather knight to c3, an invitation to the Nimzo, and then you play bishop to b4 and you are very happy. But sometimes your opponents will play knight f3, sort of the anti-Nimzo, but you can still play bishop to b4 check, even though the knight is not on c3. This is now the Bogo-Indian defense, and also allows a great play with black. So bishop to d2, queen to e7. Interestingly, this is the Nimzovich variation of the Bogo-Indian. We have g3 and bishop captures on d2. We have queen captures, so the bishop, dark square bishops get traded off the board, unlike in the Nimzo where you will trade bishop for knight, knight to c6, and now knight to c3. We have pawn to d5 and bishop to g2, and Pragg goes for the immediate d captures on c4. He gives Teimour the full center, but he will get counterplay on the queen side. We have castles, kingside, castles, kingside by Pragg as well, and now pawn to e4. Teimour grabs the full center, and rook to b8. Interestingly, okay, you can even go for a6, b5, and more often than not, white will not try to prevent this. Usually when you play a6 or rook to b8 to prepare pawn to b5, white will just play pawn to a4 and stop this. But here, if you play pawn to a4, it's not as great. Then the knight has all sorts of knight a5 to b3 moves. Also, the knight can come to b4 and then go immediately to d3, which white cannot prevent, as the bishop has already been fianchetto. The bishop does not control d3. So you will not see a4 when you play this, and you don't have to worry about it. Rook f to e1, and now rook to d8, and it is now already, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. So rook to d1, just going for the full center. The rooks are already on d and e files, and pawn to b5. We have pawn to a3 and pawn to a5. Now preparing to strike with b4, and knight to d5 by Teimour. It's not a piece sacrifice because, well, Pragg even captures it and allows this. Now the queen is attacked and the knight. We have queen to d6, and now d captures on c6. But the real problem occurs if you capture on c6 as well. You have to allow this pawn to stay alive. If you capture it, then comes knight e5 with the double attack on the queen, and wherever you move your queen, knight comes to c6 and wins one of the rooks. So of course Pragg does not touch the pawn. He goes for pawn to b4, knight to e5, and now bishop to e6. Just continuing development. At any time Pragg can just play c3 and create a pass pawn. Not right now, but in the future. A captures on b4. We have not a captures or rook captures, but Pragg goes for queen captures. He offers a queen trade. Queen captures and a captures. And now, certainly, if c3 is played, Pragg will create a pass pawn. Pawn to d5, of course, Teimour will not just wait around for that, so he temporarily sacrifices a pawn to capture on c4. And it doesn't matter what you capture with. If you capture with the bishop first, Teimour will trade and then capture the pawn, or if you capture with the knight, like Pragg did, then you can capture on c4 right away. So king to f8. Pragg starts bringing the king into the game, and now pawn to h3. We have rook to a8, trying to get that rook all the way down the board, and of course rook to a1, countering that. We have pawn to b3 by Pragg, and now knight to e5. We have rook captures on a1. Now, probably you are wondering if rook to a2 is a move. If we can play that, maybe double up on the a file should be good for black. But this is no more than a draw offer, it would seem, because after knight to d7 check, there are all sorts of tactics that work in Teimour's favor. For example, bishop captures, pawn captures, rook captures. Okay, you're up a pawn. But now, let's say rook a to d1. You go after the knight here, and if you play knight b6, you offer a trade. You can simply captures, and play bishop to c6. And now the knight can't really move because of checkmate. The knight is hanging, so you have to do something about that. You have to play knight f6 to prevent checkmate, and now you're going to play rook e2. You're going to defend the pawn, and you're going to go after that b3 pawn, capture back the pawn. So you're either down a pawn for the rest of the game, or you will probably have to give it up. But it's not really an attempt to win, especially with white having a bishop against knight, with play being on both sides of the board. It's pretty much drawish. So instead, Pragg goes for the much stronger rook captures on a1, rook captures, and now king to e7. He knows that the real weakness of his position is the c7 pawn, and he wants to get an early start with his king to start defending that. We have rook to a7 and king to d6. Now defends and attacks on e5, knight to c4 check, and now king to c5. Okay, the knight for the moment is defending c7, but you always have to worry about bishop captures and rook captures on c7. So he moves the king with tempo. The knight is hanging, knight to d2, and now knight to f6, again with tempo, as the knight is again hanging. Knight to e4 with check. We have captures, and now we have rook to d1 with check. You have to now be very careful. Your pawn here is hanging, and your pawn here is hanging. Although you never really want to capture this one, the bishop can easily be trapped. Or maybe you can't trap the bishop in order to capture it, but maybe you can just keep it out of the game, which is also pretty bad for white. So king to g2, and now king to d6. The king retreats to defend the c7 pawn. We have rook to a8, and now king to e5. With tempo, the bishop is hanging. King to f3, defending, and now rook to e1, hoping to win the bishop. So rook to a5 with check kicks away the king, king to d6, and now pawn to g4. We have pawn to h6, and rook to b5, again putting pressure on the b3 pawn. We have bishop to c4, attacking the rook, pushing it away, and the rook to b4 now. We have king to c5, defends and attacks, rook to b7, and king back to d6. So you have this weird situation on the queen side where both players have a light square bishop. They both have to defend their pawns on light squares on the queen side, and both of them want to attack the other guy's pawn that is on a dark square. So it's really a mind game. We have rook to b4, and now bishop to e6. Here, if you go king to c5, then, for example, rook to b7 and king to d6, you can just go for a repetition here. But, of course, I don't think either of them wanted that. So bishop back to e6, and now rook to d4 with check. We have king to e5, rook back to b4, and now pawn to g5. Grabbing more space here. Now the king cannot touch the f4 and h4 squares. Rook to b5 check. We have king to d4, and now rook back to b4 with check. Bishop to c4, and rook to a4. We have king to c5, and now rook back to a7, going after the pawn here. So rook, king back to d6, and rook to a4. Goes after the bishop. Bishop to e2 check. Now Pragg has to try something else in order to avoid repetition. King g3, and bishop back to b5, attacking the rook. And here you have to play rook to a5 and settle for a repetition. Bishop c4, and then king to f3, and we can repeat this once more. But Teimour went active. He played rook to d4 with check, king to c5, and now rook to d5 with check. He played king to b6. King to b4 can also be played, or king to c4. King to b6 was played, and now rook to d4. We have rook to g1 with check, king to f3, and now rook to h1. Going after the pawn here. King g3 defending, and now rook to c1. Now ready to capture on c6. So king to f3, and now bishop to c4. Of course, if you capture on c6, then just bishop captures, king captures, and while you won a pawn, there's really nothing to defend the b3 pawn. So it's not really winning a pawn. So bishop to c4 was played. And now king to e3. We have king to c5, and now rook to d7. Again, going for the pawn here. Rook to e1 check. We have king to f3, and now king to b6. Again, defending the c7 pawn. So it's like really a theme of the game. Rook to d4 attacks the bishop, bishop to e6, and now rook to b4 check. We have king to c5 and the rook to b7, king to d6 once again. So it's really just going back and forth to rook to b4, rook to h1, Pragg setting a little trap here, and rook to d4 with check. We have king to e5, and now rook to d2, but the problem is now that even though Pragg can win a pawn, maybe there's a better move here. In fact, the position is completely winning for Pragg, and well, it's not easily spottable how to do that. So feel free to pause the video and win the game for Pragg while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on realizing that the bishop on e4 is trapped, and for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook to e1. This is what Pragg played, and it was in this position on move 62 that Teimour Radjabov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Now, of course, the bishop can move, but where are you moving the bishop? That's the question. Doesn't really matter where you move it. If you play something like bishop to f5, you get bishop to d5 check, and now the king has only the g3 square. You look at the rook covers this, pawn and king cover that, bishop covers g2, so only g3 is available to the white king. Then comes rook g1 check, and after king h2, rook to g2 check forces the king into a windmill, king h1, and now rook captures on f2 check will win the rook on d2. So the d2 square was really not the best of squares for the rook. So, you know, tough luck for Teimour. But yeah, really shows how even when your opponent doesn't allow you to play the Nimzo-Indian defense, you see how you can get a lot of action with the Bogo-Indian. Okay, you have to trade bishop for bishop most of the times, but still, all the motives and all the ideas that you can maybe use in the Nimzo-Indian are available to you here, and you always get a very nice game. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any other favorites from the Tata Still India Rapid, do use hashtag suggestion and I will go over them. I would like to thank Jaron Asher, Rohan Tana, David Kimura, Obvious, Mimic.com, and Gerard Princeton for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful event until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.